Joe Friendly at you again, continuing. Birthdays. Boiling down to a sun-time dimension that can be described as one of the three variables in the world of sign cycles. Our world, as we know it, civilization, is built on sign cycles. Our electricity department decided sign cycles was the way to go. At times they thought, why don't we just have constant direct and not changing? And they checked and they wondered and they tried and they said, no, sign cycles allow for change. They are change itself. And indeed, to give Caltech credit, it did teach me about sign cycles. The darling of the mathematics I learned in engineering, in physics, in music, sign cycles are a family, really. There's the cosine and other relatives. But there were mathematicians who were able to take over all the other forms of expressions and say we can boil that down to sign cycles. That sign cycles was like a freely exchangeable dimension that flowed throughout the other realities of mathematical possibilities, you know. And the reason was that what a sign cycle amounts to is the information of its future and past change contained at every point on it, somehow. That the rates of change and the rates of change, the orders of rates of change, the second order, the third order, all the way up to infinity. Rates of change existing at every point on the sign cycle, which wins the contest for smooth. The sign cycle is the smoothest wiggle going. And what I learned in engineering was that interchangeability in the world of sign cycles and all the rest led to an engineering trick. Not only did we have a slide rule and some tables here and there, but we knew about sign cycles in the form of the Laplace transform. We would take out the recipe book for figuring out what's going on in a circuit, boiling everything down to loops and nodes and differential equations. And they would be messy equations and a nightmare to actually solve those equations and come up with the variables x, y, and z and time. That was the variables that we're dealing with. X, y, z, and t, or in electrical engineering you got volts and amps and frequency, represented by the Greek letter a small omega. Frequency as omega. And here I'm boiling down to the single most important thing of it all, the sun, and its sign cycle relationship to us here in the temperate zone as a sign cycle, one cycle a year. In terms of hertz, usually in our civilization at this time, sign cycles are measured in hertz. Your cell phone is in the order of a gigahertz. That's 1 billion cycles every second. One cycle a year is 1/millionth of a cycle every second. Something of that order. 1/millionth of one cycle each second. Or many seconds in a year, you got it? Hey, come on. So that's a revelation, that's a scientific improvement in our understanding as a people how to sort thought. And along the way, one of the spin-offs of the compass is appreciating that you can make some generalizations about the relationship of phases. You know, like in engineering, we learned that there's things happening 90 degrees out of phase, 180 degrees. In engineering, it's broken down into something, instead of degrees, they use a system called radians, which comes down to pi for everybody. So it's just pieces of pi. So instead of the other degrees, they break it down to pieces of pi. And when you get a pi, you're supposed to be happy with just a half. That a whole circle is actually 2 pi. Anyhow, oh, us engineers, we had such a good time at Caltech. Sine cycles are the champions in smooth. They contain the rates of change at every point of all the rest. And so, isn't it nice that human beings and life on Earth and all that did respond to that reality that the sun is going at us as a sine cycle? And human nature has decided to use that thing that's going on in nature that causes some species to born one time and some the other, to try all the different times and see if there was some way of being human that could cope successfully, triumphantly, successfully in the struggle for survival, to be included in the ongoing thing we're trying to keep going. So, by popular request, the guy behind the camera has said, Joe, tell him about the key to true love while you're at it. You know, it's our last tape. How about it, pal? And indeed, I have discovered, by just asking everybody not only their birthday, but their parents' birthdays, that indeed 6 months apart is a time of resonance between one human being and another that it would be just a waste not to celebrate and experience. Because what it is, when you talk to somebody 6 months from your birthday, a surprisingly amount of that time, you'll meet somebody who you enjoy interacting with, that instead of shooting you down after you say how you got it figured out, they come back and help. They're with you. Now, when we find somebody like that of the opposite sex, we could just go marry him. I'm trying to make trouble by saying, well, try a whole bunch and see if you can find the best one of 10, you know. Maybe there's some mischievousness in that, because it might end up a looks contest. And if it does, should we just say, okay, now turn off the lights and let's get past the looks? Because as we rescue ourselves from commercialism, that looks thing is disaster, I think. I mean, my vision of after the revolution is no more makeup, no more worrying about your looks. We just look for the sparkle in each other's eyes and just the smile that goes with it. And have media controlled by people with that spirit, that want human nature to be celebrated, human beings to be celebrated in all its visual forms. To celebrate imagine being born ugly. And then what? How about a just society where the veil is progress? You just don't know where that Joe Friendly is going to go when you start off a show with him, you know what I mean? 6 months apart is the secret of true love. On the next tape, if there ever is one, I'll tell you that that's what you should be looking for. With your birthday, you take 6 months and